Japanese atomic catastrophe. What else are we waiting for? We urgently need to move to alternative sources of energy, wind, solar energy, the use of biomass energy. All this exists. It just needs a political will to move to alternative energy sources.
A full quarter of a century after Chernobyl, the world's faced with a new nuclear catastrophe, this time in Japan. To discuss further what took place 25 years ago, we're joined by Dr. Janette Sherman. She edited the book Chernobyl, Consequences of the Catastrophe for People and Nature. She's joining us from Arlington, Virginia, joining us from PBS station WETA. We're also joined by Dr. Jeff Patterson. He's the immediate past president of Physicians for Social Responsibility. He visited Chernobyl after the disaster. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Jeff Patterson, let's begin with you. Talk about what happened 25 years ago today and what you saw when you went there afterwards.
Well, a month after the accident, which irradiated a huge area and the radiation went worldwide, I was in Germany, East and West Germany, touring and lecturing. I was in Marburg, a university town much like Madison. After my lecture, the mayor of Marburg came up to me and said, "What should I tell people?" I get different answers from my radiation specialists, from my medical doctors, from my engineers. I don't know what to tell people. And I think this is the situation today. 2 years after Chernobyl, I was in Chernobyl, and while we were touring around the plant where they were still washing down the streets, there were men grading dirt up that was highly radioactive. They wore no respirators, no protection whatsoever. And I asked my guide, how are you monitoring the radiation levels on these people? And he said, oh, they all wear badges. And I said, where's your badge? And he opened his coat and said, I guess I left it at home today. And this is exemplary of what was done after Chernobyl, where 600,000 to 800,000 workers came in and sacrificed some of their lives for the cleanup. And the records on many of those workers are simply gone. They've disappeared. I spoke recently with a physicist who was involved with monitoring the radiation at the plant at that time, and he said these workers had no protection. They wore paper masks that they often didn't wear, and he said he's tried to find the records in the Ukraine, and they've simply disappeared. And he himself did not know how much radiation he received at the time of that accident. So I think this is an example of the confusion, the difficulty in monitoring radiation, and the history of the nuclear industry, which has been one of secrecy, cover-up, and minimization of the damage that occurs.
Let's go to Janette Sherman. Dr. Janette Sherman, describe what happened on this day 25 years ago in Chernobyl. Even place it for us physically.
Well, there had been a decision to do a test on the reactor, and they started on the day shift, and then it couldn't happen, so they postponed it to the afternoon shift, and finally it was undertaken on the night shift, where people were not prepared, and they achieved a runaway nuclear reaction, which they could not control, and had an explosion that we're contending with ever since. We still, even though it's 25 years later, we're still dealing with the radiation at Chernobyl. It's still leaking out of the reactor. The so-called containment that was built around it is crumbling. And there is really no way to control this. There is a proposal to build a steel shell that will come from two different directions and close over the top of the reactor. But the funding hasn't been achieved yet, and it's a long way off before this will ever be built.
Dr. Jeff Patterson, the casualties of Chernobyl 25 years ago are wide-ranging. Some say 4,500 people died. Others, well, a study by the New York Academy of Sciences in 2009 concluded the death toll from Chernobyl was as high as 1 million. What are the figures?
Well, I think we do have a wide range of figures, and I don't think we know for sure. When we look at the Hiroshima data, this Hiroshima bomb was a one-time dose of radiation that occurred 65 years ago, and we're still seeing new cancers and new deaths from that. And again, that was a one-time dose of radiation. This radiation goes on and on because it's nuclides that are put into the atmosphere and now in the ground and water and continue to expose people. So we honestly don't know the end of this experiment, and we're going to have to watch it for literally hundreds of years to see what's going to happen. I think that it's safe to say that the results are far worse than certainly the conservative estimates. And the other issue is the Hiroshima data has cost billions of dollars to accumulate, and we've been looking at that for 65 years, and we still don't have the answer to that question. So here we are with far more people exposed to continuing radiation. This is truly an experiment that we're not going to see the end of, and that the results of which will be visited on our children and grandchildren for generations to come.
And this figure that the Chernobyl blast was 400 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Could you explain that?
Well, it's a little difficult because the bomb was exploded 1,000 feet in the air, and so it was a one-time dose of radiation. The thermal energy initially killed about 100,000 people, and subsequently 100,000 or so more have died from the effects of the radiation and other injuries. And so the force of the blast is essentially what we're talking about here, and also the radiation effect. And I think the fact is that more radiation has been released from the Chernobyl plant, and that's, I think, where the figure of the 400 times more powerful comes from.
On the eve of the 25th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, President Dmitry Medvedev of Russia reiterated his commitment to the development of nuclear energy.
События последнего периода напомнили
The recent events have reminded humanity that we can't take things easy, and that when making important decisions, it is necessary to take into account a whole range of issues which in the future might affect safety. Of course, I mean the situation around the Japanese Fukushima 1 nuclear plant. At the same time, we should not block development. The peaceful atom remains the cheapest and, in general, environmentally the cheapest type of energy.
Late last month, President Obama unveiled a new energy policy seeking to reduce the use of foreign oil while reaffirming also his commitment to nuclear power.
It's important to recognize that nuclear energy doesn't emit carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So those of us who are concerned about climate change, we've got to recognize that nuclear power, if it's safe, can make a significant contribution to the climate change question. And we're going to incorporate those conclusions and lessons from Japan in design and the building of the next generation of plants. But we can't simply take it off the table.
Dr. Jeff Patterson, your response.
Well, I think nuclear power, nuclear energy has three poisonous Ps, and those are pollution, and we're certainly seeing the example of that now at the 25th anniversary of Chernobyl. That pollution occurs all along the fuel cycle, from the time we dig it out of the ground, the tailings that are left and expose people to radon, to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, to the production of fuel, and then we don't know where to bury the waste or what to do with it. And now we're seeing the catastrophic release of radiation once again, which happened at Kishtym in Russia, happened in Chernobyl, and now is happening in Fukushima, and will happen again. And so pollution is the first thing that is the poisonous P. Second is price. And as Medvedev said, he claims that this is the cheapest form of energy. It's by far and away the most expensive form of energy. When we figure in the results of these disasters and the cost to people's health, the economic loss, the agriculture cultural loss. Ukraine, in the initial days of this, spent a sixth of their national budget on Chernobyl, and Belarus and Ukraine are still spending 5 to 7% of their national budgets every year to deal with the Chernobyl accident. If we figured all of that into the cost of nuclear power becomes extremely expensive. As Dr. Sherman mentioned, the next sarcophagus that they're proposing to build over the nuclear power plant, they're estimating will cost $1.1 billion, and they've only raised $800 million for this now. It's already 3 years behind time in terms of being built. And so the question is, will this ever get done? Because the cost of this is so much. The cost of building a new nuclear power plant is so expensive that chances are none will be built because nobody wants to fund them. And the third poisonous P is proliferation. Nuclear power and nuclear weapons go hand in hand. Medvedev talked about the peaceful atom that was designed by Eisenhower. Well, it's out of the peaceful atom program that has come nuclear weapons for many countries, and we're seeing the example of that in Iran today. So these are deadly parts of the nuclear experiment that we are conducting today that, in my opinion, is a highly unethical experiment.